We are very, very happy to welcome you in Bucharest.
Thank you.
You are our third and last
I'm happy to be here.
coming from Peste Hotare. Da. Yes, you're happy to be here, great.
Very much.
Yes.
I mean, it's a bit bizarre to wear the mask all the time, but I mean,
Yeah.
could be worse.
Could be worse, yeah. And we have to set the example. I don't know if this is English. Donner l'exemple en français.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
set the example.
Okay, great. I don't know how much time we have because usually it was not planned to do a Q&A after the films because there is no time, but here, I don't know, somebody can tell me? Somebody knows? I have no idea. Sorry? 15 to 10. Okay, maybe we have a bit of time. Tomorrow, anyway, we are meeting for 2 hours, Sebastian here, and I repeat that the public is super welcome to come and have a deep conversation with the filmmakers who make it to Bucharest. So, and for now, so I can ask questions, and I'm going to ask questions. I have already a few in my head, it's okay. But we really want, and especially Sebastian wants, to have also maybe your questions, your remarks, your whatever, because everybody of you has received the film in a different way, that's for sure. And we are very interested by how you have received the film. I know that it's hard to speak from the audience, that we are very shy, and I'm terribly shy as an audience public, but great. So, is there somebody who take care of the microphone, or I have to? Yeah. Right. Oh, which one? Not mine.
I don't know if you can tell from my expression, but I really enjoyed your movie, and I really wanted to ask you. Do you ever get worried that your presence as a filmmaker may influence the people's interactions and their speech and everything?
I'm happy that you enjoyed the film. You mean that when after I mean immediately talking, like me talking immediately after the film being not the best of ideas, you mean? Because I could basically tell you things that you might yourself think about before me telling them to you? Or did I get that right?
No, I meant the people that you film.
Ah, yeah, the people that like Cliff in this film, for example.
Not really Cliff, but the people that
Generally.
he interacted with. Do you ever worry that their interactions might be influenced by your presence and by the cameras and crew?
Yeah, no. Honestly, no. Because, I mean, obviously you change it. I mean, obviously your presence, the camera's presence, particularly the microphone's presence, the boom operator, and the fact that you wire the people, they get radio mics before we start shooting. They get also, like, I mean, we had a very clear setup that was almost inevitable setup, like a technical setup, because, you know, the people had to basically get their microphones and they had to know when to come into the garage, because when we were shooting inside, sometimes, you know, in the beginning when we started shooting, I realized, okay, I cannot just shoot inside and there is no one outside of the garage preventing people from just stumbling inside the garage whenever someone would come by, because that would maybe ruin a scene that we were just shooting. So then we had to establish a sort of systematic approach to that, and there was someone outside with a walkie-talkie and I had a walkie-talkie in my ear, and as soon as someone would come, and I mean, I knew the people that were coming there, most of them at least. And so then I got information, for example, Gusti and Iboya, the two Hungarians, the couple that you see in the film twice are approaching. So, okay, cool, then ask them if they're cool, I mean, if they're good with filming today. If yes, then they get the microphone. And then when they were ready and we were ready, then okay, now come inside. But they already, I mean, they basically got the instruction to please don't look into the camera and try to, you know, do business as normal as possible. And that worked for the most part. I mean, with Gusti Boya, for example, and also with Ferenc, this is the Hungarians who come to buy things at Cliff. Actually, because we were now just at this concert, and then the whole subject of this year's festival is Roma people, and so just as a side note, but the Hungarian customers of Cliff are predominantly Roma people as well, like Gusti Boya and Ferenc. But what I wanted to say is that what I wanted to say actually, anyways, yeah, when they come in, yeah, we just yeah, well, with the exception of Ferenc, for example, with Ferenc we did try to, because he really enjoyed acting himself, and so with Ferenc we had a bit of a more prepared setup, let's say. I mean, we would even repeat the scene with him, you know. Which I, for example, did not with Gusti and Boya. I mean, with them, we really just filmed what was going on, and we did not really, break down the scene. With Ferenc, yes, we did. And then there's, for example, this other guy who just comes into the garage, who wants to buy the tires. And he, for example, hasn't ever been there before. I mean, I've really met him for the first time. And I didn't know the guy, and he was just, I mean, I got the information on the walkie-talkie, someone is coming, and he would be willing to participate, and so we just gave it a try, and I think it was great, because later on it turned out that he really had a kind of a fascination for Bollywood cinema, and that he always dreamed of acting in a film, and I don't know, it was just a small chance for him to shine, basically, and he took opportunity of it. But no, I'm not worried about it, because you change the cause of events, obviously, and you create, I mean, already during shooting, but then even more so during the editing of the film, you create a new reality that obviously has a very intimate relationship to the reality that, you know, we were meeting out there, but which is a reality nevertheless that exists on the screen, and only on the screen exclusively.
Thank you.
I have a very simple question, but it's sort of eating me up. I was wondering what interested you in Cliff's story that you decided to document it?
Well, it was a long... I mean, it's a kind of not a long story particularly, but I was first actually interested, or I was shooting in this place where he works, but not for this film, for my previous feature film actually, and it was more like a coincidence that I met him there. I was shooting with teenagers from the region where I grew up. I shot a film with them, and they were going to play paintball there. And so yeah, and on that occasion I met Cliff, and I realized not only Cliff but a few other people at the time who were when he was not doing business alone there, but there was a couple of people, and I just found it extremely interesting that there was I mean, this place is relatively hard to find. I mean, if you don't know it, you would never end up there. If you don't go there either for playing paintball or because you know that someone is selling used car parts, which is not really interesting for, let's say, the regular Austrian people. It's really more interesting for people who have an economic necessity to buy used parts. So, and so, I mean, for me it was just intriguing that I go to this super remote place, and from there I would be able to tell a story of global dimension. And so that was intriguing me in the first place before I got to know Cliff better, to be honest. And then that was in 2000. I guess that was in 2011 or so, and then I finished this film that I was working on, and and then I actually went back there to do a short film. That was because I was studying in France then, and I had the chance to do a short film at Le Frenois, and so I decided I will try to work with them and to do a short film. And there was Cliff, Magnus, but also James, the three of them in this short film. And then from that, that was also for them, not only for me, but also for them, a way of getting to know each other. To trust each other also, because this short film was really there was a lot of obstacles in terms of trust that I had to overcome. And then they saw the result, and then like a year or so later, or 2 years later, the only person left was Cliff, and so I kept in contact with him, and then things kept changing. I mean, the paintball field disappeared. Magnus quit the business, James quit the business, a third guy, and the only person who continued doing it was Cliff. And then we just got to know each other better and better. I always wanted to do another film, a feature film with not necessarily with him alone, but then with this place and the people that are working there, let's say. And but he was the only one left at one point, and then the financing of this film took really long time, which at the time was very exhausting and of course frustrating for me. But what happened in that time, in this very long period of time, almost 2 years, was that Cliff and I got to know each other pretty well, and we got to appreciate each other pretty well. And I think he saw how serious I was about the project, because I kept coming back for 2 years, telling him, okay, hopefully we can start shooting in half a year or another half a year. So, and eventually we started shooting, and we knew each other so well. And what I think what he brings to the place, what fascinated me about his particular presence in this place is that he brings, he kind of emphasizes the very particular temporality of this place. I mean, this place is kind of, I don't know, it's fallen out of space and time in a weird way. It's full of traces. It's breathing its own history. I mean, it's an abandoned factory building that has been appropriated by a new user by Cliff, and who is still doing something that is in relation with the line of business that has been performed before him in this garage, because it's part of in this region of this kind of steel industry complex, let's say. I mean, working with metal. And then he has an incredible physical presence in this space. I mean, he basically gives this, he has a way of performing his work. He's basically doing everything in the same tempo. Every movement that he does, everything that he does, has a sort of even and very steady pace. And then only when he's negotiating, he changes to a more kind of feverish appearance, or like a more, I don't know, not aggressive, but in a more, I don't find the right word now, but I think when you just saw the film, so you know what I mean. It's like he has a very interesting way of emphasizing something in this space that is already there through his physical presence and through the way he moves through this space. And I really like how he plays with the languages, how he meets all the customers halfway. I don't know if he can talk a few words in Bulgarian, in Hungarian. Then someone calls and he can speak in the broadest Austrian dialect, and he switches to English or to Igbo. I don't know. It's like language becoming also material. So I don't know. So many things made sense. I mean, Cliff's personality per se, but then also Cliff in relation to this space, and in relation to the global economy that you could talk about, also to the regional economy that I was able to somehow work with at the same time. And then I don't know, it just made so much sense to me, everything. And Cliff was obviously most important part of the film, but many things around him made sense too. So it was really a, yeah, I don't know, I'm talking a lot, but I hope there was something useful there.
There are lots of things useful. Do you have other questions or remarks?
I had this impression that there was a lot of a theatrical atmosphere actually in this movie, and personally I was thinking most of Samuel Beckett,
Yeah.
and it's Fin de Partie. And I wanted to know if you looked for that kind of atmosphere, end of the world, end of a place, end of a world. I don't know. Was it really? Did you want it to have this atmosphere, or instead everything was imposing this kind of sadness or melancholia or whatever it might be? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I was looking for that particularly. I mean, I studied stage design, so I worked a lot with theater texts, and basically my formal education was in stage design for theater. And I guess when I film, I also work with that, like, I mean, but in the reverse way. I mean, I realized that not for the first time actually, that I tend to look for the everyday scenographies, you know, and then basically because it is something that was there. I mean, this abandoned factory building, the paintball field on the opposite side, and the kind of patina that this building has, and this entire site has, with, I don't know, once in the film you see this kind of imprints of tires that were stacked on the paintball field, and it was not really a photographic effect but more like a biological effect of some plants growing around and then leaving these imprints, and the weather and so on. But so I mean, I'm looking in a way like, what do these like everyday scenographies tell us? Like, how could I use the camera and the tools of cinema to decipher this everyday scenography, and how can the people that actually work there give meaning to this space, or how do they give meaning to this space, and how can I, you know, emphasize that or work with that. So when you have a theater text, you would basically then work to illustrate in a certain way. I mean, I'm putting it in very simple terms now, but to illustrate or to find a way to visualize on stage something that would work with this text. Whereas here you have a given stage, so to say, and you have to search for the story that you can tell there. And so I don't know. That is something that I definitely do. But then again, I mean, it's there, but I don't know if it's there for everyone. Like, I saw this place, or I experienced this place, and for me this was there. I guess it's maybe not there for everyone, because I mean, you can also see other things, I guess. And then of course it's not so much there as it is there in the film now. I mean, that is obviously an artifact of that place, or a very also artificially enhanced version of that place. But a lot of it is there, and somehow communicated with me this atmosphere and this vanitas, this feeling of vanitas, and this feeling of waiting for something, and this feeling of things, you know, not declining, but something that, yeah, like a presence that can be gone at any moment, let's say. So yeah, I don't know, it's a mix, I guess, of looking for something, then finding it, and then working with it and making it even more perceptible for people that haven't been there, maybe.
I want to ask you actually what happened with the main character in the end of like what happened in his country, because I had the impression that he became lost in his own country. And so what is the end of the story?
Well, I mean, there is not really. You mean in real life, or? I mean, I just talked to Cliff before when on the phone when we were. So he's at home in Austria, in the town where he lives. Yeah, no, he didn't get lost.
No,
He's fine.
I refer to when he came back to Nigeria. So he remained in Nigeria, or he came back to Austria?
No, he's in Austria. He's not actually. He doesn't have the citizenship yet, but he will most likely get citizenship in 2 years. So he's in Austria. Yeah, he's not in Nigeria. He only goes to Nigeria to do business and for vacation. But it's interesting. I mean, it's like you know, he's not very. Like, as I told him today, for example, I'm in Bucharest, you might like it here because it reminds me a little bit of your garage when we were walking through the old city and there's lots of buildings that have fallen apart and so on, and said, maybe you would like it here. And he said, I don't know, because I'm so used to Austria, I think I like the things like well constructed and like in order and so on. And that's the same thing that he told me in Nigeria. I mean, he's really having a hard time, or he had a hard time. Also, the shooting was quite complicated in Nigeria because of that, because he's completely torn between these two worlds actually, and he is much more in tune by now with his life in Austria than when he's in Nigeria. So, in a way, maybe this impression. I mean, I don't know if well, it's just something that I continue to think about, but. That he is a bit lost, I guess, in Nigeria, in a certain metaphorical way. At least when we were shooting there, I think when he goes there with his son for vacation, it's a different story. But it was just like us. I mean, him being there and everyone knowing that he lives in Europe, and that already comes with an expectation. And then we being with him there with a camera, and that raises the expectations in terms of what he might be able to, financially contribute to his community or to certain places that we were shooting in. And that was something that was quite stressful for him, and then also for us. I mean, we had to really adopt a lot in the process there. Adopt our schedule of shooting and the time that we could spend somewhere for shooting, the time that Cliff was willing to work. Then, I mean, in his village, for example, was very difficult because it was really, they put a lot of pressure on him, and initially he didn't tell me, and I could not tell. I just realized he was super stressed and very difficult to work with at the time. And then at one point he told me what the problem was, luckily, and then of course we were able to adapt to it. But so I mean, it was just basically somehow cultural misunderstandings, or just like learning figuring out how things work there. I think also he had to figure it out. I don't think that he was expecting it himself. It was just something we all had to kind of figure out there. But yeah, it was. But no, I don't know. It's not really. I mean, this scene I like more. I mean, when it's not really about him getting lost. For me, it's more like he's walking finally, not driving. It's also this kind of bizarre. Maybe, I don't know, playing a little bit with his ideas also, that now he's maybe, I mean, he's eating this fruit which is in a sort of jungle, with a jungle in the background, and for me it stipulated immediately this imagery of biblical imagery, if you will, of the Old Testament, of like paradise maybe, but then the paradise is not there. Like, I don't know, because going to a country in Africa or shooting there and then particularly going into a forest, it comes with a lot of romantic expectations, and I like that, but at the same time I like also that it doesn't go anywhere, that it basically the romantic expectation might be there, but then nothing's happening. Just the contrary, he stands in the middle of the forest, smokes a cigarette, and he has his phone, so he's still connected to the, you know, to the same reality like before, because I mean, even there you have 3G network or 4G or 5G, I don't know. And there's also cars, and then there's like you know, the sound of the motor and the light passing over his face, and then I don't know. It's like I like. That's why I put this scene there. Actually, that was what I was interested in.
I noticed the sound a lot. It was great. So what my question was it all diegetic, or did you do something in post to it? Because it was really it was standing out to me.
Yes, no, we did a lot. I mean, we already did a lot of, you know, I mean, I had a great sound engineer, first of all, Johannes Schmelzer-Zillmer, and he was also recording a lot of things completely independent from the camera. Like, even when we were not shooting, he would just go around with his microphone and record sounds on the location, and even in the like motel that we were sleeping at, he was recording at 6 in the morning, the factory next to it. So I mean, it's just he's collecting also for his archive and so on, and that was really helpful in the post-production. But then, yes, I was also working with a Foley artist, because I wanted to get I mean, I wanted to increase the presence of all the people in terms of footsteps and presence, in terms of the clothes and the movements and everything that you could potentially hear. Also you know, when he's working on a car and something was not, or his breath, Cliff's breath, for example, we did a lot on that. Even smoking. So to really enhance mainly his presence, but also the other people who come to the garage, with the exception of Magnus's presence. So Magnus is the guy who is in the blue collar, dressed in the blue overall. And he, with him we did the opposite. We basically erased every sound, I mean all the steps, everything that he did except from his voice, to enhance his kind of otherworldly presence as someone, as a memory or whatever. I mean, for me it was a memory. So yeah, then also I used some sounds that I recorded previously, that I recorded for the short film. So I mean, I just like the idea of recycling some of the material, not only sound but also images. So basically to kind of echo a little bit also on the making of the film, or on the material level of the film, the subject of the film, which is about reusing things and prolonging the life of things. So I thought in this, since I mean making films or making images and sounds, I mean particularly with images, it's also following a certain economy, and then I was having this material already that we shot back then on Super 16mm, for example, and sounds like the paintball sound that you hear in the film, but you don't see the paintball field when they are talking about it. So that, for example, is sounds that were recorded a few years earlier, prior to that, and this kind of things we did. I mean, we spent a lot of time on the sound, actually.
Sure. Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question, if I have the mic. Regarding what you said before, I wonder how did you decide the editing and the structure of the movie? Because for me it's kind of like a loop, with the beginning when you talk and the end, and in the middle you have like the main action with when he's walking, when he's talking, and you have just a small part in Nigeria. So did you thought of that before, or if the relation and the friendship, if I can say, with the main character transform or make you change the way you wanted to do the movie, the structure of the movie?
So I really, I mean, I believe very much in process. Like, I mean, you cannot, particularly with a film like this, you can, in my opinion, I don't know, maybe there's some genius who can foresee everything, but I don't think that's possible. And so I really try to go with the flow and to, you know, I never know what kind of material I will end up with, to be honest. I know a certain amount of scenes, and of course I have, I have this idea of working with the footage that I have already shot, and I have this, you know, desire to work with Magnus as someone from the past, and I think of a few very particular scenes, for example, the 360 degrees pan, that would, you know, make something like this possible. But then, apart from that, I really, like, I didn't write any dialogue scenes or so. I just let them improvise on that. But it works because I know them and I somehow trust them that they would deliver, let's say, you know. Even though, how to say, there is nothing I particularly expected in that respect. Also with the scenes that I shot with Cliff, I mean, his daily routines, I mean, I tried to spend a lot of time there, and I knew, of course, because I have spent a lot of time beforehand, what the routines were, so I could anticipate a little bit what kind of footage I would end up with. And the only thing as a sort of, yeah, maybe a sort of guiding thread that I wrote down and that I kept in mind and that I was trying to really stick to, but that not completely, but that disappeared to a large extent from the editing or during the editing, is this green van that is being filled up with with these engines that are wrapped in the clinch film. That ends up in Nigeria, and where he then in Nigeria takes out the objects that he has placed inside in Austria. So there was this idea in a way that, I mean, not in a way, there was this, I mean, we knew basically, or I knew that we would shoot at the end of the shooting that was planned in Nigeria. I didn't know if the Nigeria shoot would necessarily end up at the end of the film, but we also tried a lot of other places during editing, but it was ultimately the place where we managed to fit it in, and to where it made sense for me ultimately. But so yeah, I had, for example, I had shot Cliff being called from Nigeria and someone ordering a van, and then I shot Cliff looking for that van in Austria, and Cliff finding the van, and Cliff bringing the van to the garage, and Cliff, you know, filling it up in many more steps, putting all kinds of stuff inside, and then the van being picked up from his garage in the night time, and then so, but I just reduced that kind of maybe more classical narrative structure to the absolute minimum, let's say, to really just like a very thin, like paper structure, not even bone structure, something more filigrane, something more delicate, I guess, and the rest was really trying to, you know, respect in a certain way what was going on in the garage and what Cliff was really doing, and also give those scenes the time that they need, and to transmit also this feeling of time and how this time would pass in this garage and so on. So and then very late in the editing, even though I tried earlier during the editing, but I always failed and then had to throw it out again, and only very late during the editing, when we really found the kind of structure of the film already, was it possible to work with these super 16mm shots. So to find the places where those shots could end up and would make sense ultimately. That was very difficult, because it's only, I don't know how many, like maybe 4 or 5 shots, I don't know. Well, or not, it's a bit more shots, I think it's 8 shots, but it's like 4 or 5 times when those shots appear. And so since they don't really make sense on a you know, logical level, or even they only make sense on a poetic level and on an associative level, and so that was really difficult to find, and was only possible actually, and to had, like, there was many trials and errors until this worked. And also with this Nigeria scene, we tried, I mean, I was really unsure about the position of it, and I tried to put it to the middle, but then it was crumbling apart, and then ultimately I found this, but I decided to also put in this very long driving shot in the market to enter Nigeria, and for me, only then it worked there towards the end of the film. So yeah, it was a long process.
And for the beginning and the end, with the idea of the like a voiceover, how did this idea came? Because it's like putting the beginning and the end like a loop of the movie. So I was wondering if it's like talking with him and you want to have like a kind of metaphor or poetic way to enter and to finish the movie, or did you have the idea before? How did you get to this?
Yeah,
part?
the poem, let's say, is actually in the middle and in the end of the film. It's not really the beginning. The beginning is just a text actually, but it's also not. It's also important maybe in that respect, because the text in the beginning is a very almost like, oh, we're going to see a documentary, which is ultimately not what you are getting to see, at least not exclusively. It's and so I like this kind of misleading somewhere in the beginning, and then the film goes somewhere else. And because I mean, for me, this is not actually a poem. We just made it into something like a poem. It's a legend that is a very popular legend, particularly in this region, but all over Austria, and which refers to this. To the discovery of this ore mine, which is a very iconic ore mine that has been very important for the economic development of this region, and actually of entire Austria. I mean, the Austrian steel industry basically is built on that ore mine since, and this ore mine has been there for centuries. So for me, it was just something that made sense in a way to, you know, to use this legend, which I knew since I was a child, to link to that ore mine, first of all, which is so close to where Cliff works, because I feel that he is working in a line of business that has been well established in this region. I mean, almost like a traditional line of business. I also use it because for me, sometimes it looks to me like he's a miner, like someone who takes out precious parts from something, almost like as if he was working a mountain at times. And I also like this kind of, I think it's a film that is very materialistic on many levels, and I think that's, fair and good, but with this poem or with this legend, it also allowed me to open a window or a door to an immaterial dimension, which I think is quite interesting when we think about the logic of capitalism and this kind of idea that is also in this legend, that something would go on forever. I mean, even though we know it's not true, for example, that you can exploit whatever it is, if it's an ore mine or an oil well or a gas reserve or any of the natural resources that are being exploited are, they will end one way or the other. And I like this way that humans create legends and all kinds of religious beliefs, when Cliff is singing about eternity, for example, this religious song, which was a coincidence, by the way. It was not something, I realized it when I did the translation, and then we re-recorded some of it, but ultimately it was a coincidence, and I don't know if it was because I was telling Cliff so much about this story of the, this legend of the waterman, and of this eternity, that somehow eternity stuck in his head and he started singing this song, or if it was pure coincidence. But it was obviously beautiful and somehow rewarding that those pieces would fit together at one point so neatly in a way. But so that yeah, this way that humans create something, you know, they know it's not true, of course, that these resources would last forever, but still they would create this legend, trying to convince themselves of something different, exactly from, you know, exactly with dying. I mean, of course you know that you will die, and I mean, I don't want to offend anyone, but probably there's not going to be an eternity, spoiler alert. So, yeah, I don't know, I just found it quite beautiful how, you know, how he's also in Cliff, in not only in religious terms and in this legend, but also in this belief that, you know, the capitalist idea that, I mean, growth is eternal. Like, growth will never end. Growth will, you know, we will, I don't know where we will grow to. Maybe we will, who knows. But I mean, I don't really think it's possible under all, like, I don't know, yeah. I guess you get what I mean.
I also wanted to ask about what you said about the other guy. I don't know. Sorry, the name.
Magnus.
Magnus. Yes. Sorry. What made you want to make him kind of an otherworldly presence? Was it something more, or was it purely an aesthetic choice, just to kind of find some contrast between the two of them, between him and?
Yeah, no, it was because he wasn't working. I mean, there was two things actually. I mean, first of all, it was that he wasn't working there anymore. I mean, he quit basically after. I mean, at the end of doing the short film. I mean, we were finishing the short film on the last day of shooting, more or less. He was basically walking up to the entrance of the garage, and I don't know if you saw it, but there is now Cliff's phone number there, and this basically the phone number is like the phone in general is like the means of communication for this business. I mean, if someone wants, he puts his cards. If someone wants to sell his car, he calls him. So it's a really. So in this moment, Magnus went there and he deleted his number. Like, he took a spray can and just sprayed out his number. And I found, I mean, I said to him immediately, wait, we will set up the camera and we will film that. But ultimately it didn't, you know, it didn't end up in the short film and also not in this film. But it just was something that I remembered, which, I don't know, struck me in a way because it was such a, you know, like a banal gesture almost. He was not doing it with sentimental feelings or anything. He was just going there, spraying, saying, I've enough. I will not continue doing this any longer, but for me it was a moment when I mean, he was doing this for years, and so it was really a new chapter of his life starting, but also a new chapter for this entire enterprise and also for his play starting. And that was one thing, and then I realized when I came back, a few years later, that also the paintball field has been, I mean, it's gone, and the only person left is Cliff. So for me it was like maybe paying an homage to him, but also like showing how Cliff was working there before, kind of picking up on this idea that this place is, you know, has a certain state in the present, but has had many different states in the past. And I don't know, like this blue overall that Magnus was always wearing, also in this footage that you see, the Super 16mm footage that was shot years before, he's also wearing this blue overall. So he was always standing out very much with this super blue overall, which is for me like almost like a emblematic, you know, clothing for workers. And I suppose that those workers that have been working there before the factory was closed, let's say the Austrian workers that have been working there before, were also wearing this sort of overall, and I don't know. And so it was, for me, it was really, reviving something that has been there before, but that is no longer there, and maybe also showing a bit more how Cliff is he's really alone there, and emphasizing this feeling. I mean, it's interesting how actually the presence of people, the occasional presence of people, makes the impression of someone being alone even stronger, as if you would show him completely isolated all the time. Quite, I don't know if this is, for me, it was quite interesting to notice that. I don't know if everyone agrees with me, but that was my feeling actually. And And then I also realized in this footage that we shot with Magnus, and actually Magnus is also this kind of personality, I mean, but also in the footage he's always disappearing. I mean, in all the shots that you see with him in the film, he's disappearing one way or the other, and it's something that was already in the Super 16mm footage, so this already existing footage, and by rewatching it I realized that he was always passing in the back, but because of his blue overall, he was very visible, but then disappearing somewhere again. You know, he's going into this room in the back, and he's disappearing on the left side, and he's disappearing on the right side, and he's like has this. Also in real life, he's always disappearing in mysterious ways. So I don't know, and that was maybe more of an aesthetic choice, or like something that I saw and felt like, oh, this is interesting to work with, and then. Then ultimately I decided to work with that. And also I guess it's this kind of, because for me, okay, not that I wanted to say or that I felt like, oh, Magnus is the waterman or something, but obviously since he was wearing this blue overall and water and blue is this kind of combination, I don't know, for me sometimes on a very, like I don't know, when I was filming, sometimes I had this idea maybe in mind that he's this kind of, being that appears and disappears in weird ways, and he's really doing stuff. I mean, that I did not plan, and that were so, like I don't know if you realize that, but when the conversation starts with the two of them sitting in the car, towards the end of the film. It's so strange because Magnus is basically sitting there, just staring straight. And Cliff starts talking, and Magnus is really sitting there and staring straight and not even moving. And for quite a long time until finally he says something, and you realize, oh, so it's so. Or he would stand on this bridge for a very long time, and sometimes this would be shots that we did not intend to happen like this, And that's what I mean. It's like you gather a lot of material, particularly when you shoot in a documentary fashion, where maybe I said to him, I would like to shoot a scene with you on the bridge, but let's say, I don't know, I want someone to call you and you do a business phone call, But then the good part that actually ended up in the film is what wasn't intended to be the scene, just this moment when he's there for almost a minute, not moving on this bridge and cars passing in the back, and you don't know, like, I don't know, it feels to me like a complete David Lynch moment, So I don't know, and then in the editing you discover that this moment is great, or when you watch the material after the shooting and you try to find a place for it, and eventually you find a place for it, and so yeah.
No more questions from the public? Sure, no regrets. Can you see when we smile behind the masks? Or not? Yeah. This was your project of Le Frénois. Do you know what Le Frénois is?
Oui.
You, yes, obviously you, but the others.
It's a two-year postgraduate program in France, like sort of an interdisciplinary studies where everyone does whatever he or she wants. Yeah, film, installation, and you have guest professors that change every year, and basically they would be your mentors. And it's it's in between a residency and studying, I would say. And you really focus on on one project per year, and at the end of the year there would be a big exhibition, basically. And I think you have that this festival has a good relation with Le Frénois in general. No, I think that didn't they show a program here?
Yes, we have during the waiting room. We have showed waiting room because we had to postpone the festival. Every 15 days we have started a waiting room until this festival. During the Lockdown, yeah. And so, yeah, we have invited the director, one of the artistic director of to present with us. We have selected some films of students. But so, and we want to be more close to them also, maybe to do exchanges between Le Frennois and Monte, we'll see. But, so you have studied already? You have done studies where before this one?
In Vienna, where I studied scenography.
Oh yes.
Well, I mean, I went to Le Frennois because I was feeling that I was already 33, I think, when I went to Le Frennois. So I was quite some time after I had finished, after I had graduated from the University of Applied Arts in Vienna. Yeah, because I was in the editing process of my previous feature, and I was frustrated, or like felt like, okay, this is going nowhere, and this is horrible, and I don't know. Which was not. It was quite a good film, also shot here actually, but before you were taking over. Was actually is still a quite okay, a good film, I guess. But anyways, at the time I felt I was failing, and I need more education. So yeah, so I went to Le Frennois. I applied, and they took me, and so.
And you applied with this short film, project of short film?
Yes, actually I did. Yeah, I think I did. Well, I'm not quite sure if it was actually already. No, it was not included in my application, but I relatively early on knew that I would like to do this because it was I was just really literally just finished. No, I finished the film actually during Le Frennois, and then I was premiering the film It was premiering then at the Berlinale, and this was in February, so it was really like the first year of Frennois was completely coinciding with this launching of this film, and then I had to shoot. I mean, I thought like, okay, I will be in Austria a lot because I have to do the post-production. So I was going back and forth between France and Austria, and then I felt it would be easier for me to shoot something in Austria. And this is something I really would like to do, and this was something that was also related to the film that I had shot before, because it continued somehow. I just like the idea that you start shooting in a location and then you discover something there, and then from that comes the next film, and some places and maybe even people, or maybe also objects would appear in the next film again, and yeah, so that and then I did just after releasing the film in February, in March I shot the short film. It was just 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks of shooting, and super, like, very little material because it was on 16, so we had like I don't know, well, maybe 2 hours of material, I don't know exactly. But very little, and so it was very interesting for me. It was the first time that I shot on 16, and so it was a good exercise, but also I think it's a very interesting film, and it was for me also liberating in a sense that I mean, the Austrian tradition of documentary filmmaking, or maybe filmmaking in general, at least for the last, 15 years, has been quite rigid. I mean, like, it was Dennis Lim, the New York film critic, who came up with this term of feel-bad cinema, the Austrian feel-bad cinema. And so I guess, feel bad because, I don't know, Haneke and some of the films of Seidel maybe too, and I don't know, like also this kind of rigidness in terms of formality, like Geierhalter and so on. I mean, there is something to it. I can understand what he means when he says that, let's say. And then so for me, France was quite liberating also in that sense, because France is a very different tradition, and I don't know, like this French cinema culture, or generally French culture, has way less Berührungsängste, like way less fear of using pathetic. I say pathetic, but I don't mean it in a negative way. In a more like pathos. It's not pathetic because pathetic is a negative, like has a negative connotation. But pathos in German is like something, you know, I don't know, a bit. Yeah, you could say maybe a bit more poetic, a bit more, you know, using, for example, a legend to tell in the film, or using a poem, like using, I don't know, something like this is in Austria is not so, you know, it's quite, it's something that it doesn't come easily to you, whereas in France it's the contrary. If you don't do something that really cries out, this is art, then people are wondering, you know. So, and so I guess I don't want to take it to the extremes in both worlds, but was for me nevertheless important. And I think in this short film, that was something that I tried to explore in a way. Yeah.
I really want to see it now.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the two films together because they're similar and very different at the same time. I use a poem of Bertolt Brecht, for example, a very unknown one, but about cars in this short film. I mean, you don't really get to know the people much. It's not a film like this one where one personality, Cliff's personality in this case, is really, you know, portrayed or carved out, and it's way more interested in what I described before, in this kind of deciphering of the location with a scenographic approach. So you see the people and you also see them and you hear them talk, but you don't actually get to know them the way you get to know Cliff in this film, for example. And it's just 15 or now I think 19 minutes long, actually 19. And
maybe one day we will screen it here.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I will come back without mask.
Yeah, after the pandemic, hopefully. Yeah. I don't know, I have the impression that lots of people have to go to take the metro, no? Is that the thing? Because it's until 11 too. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I can go on because I have questions also, you know.
And we can also wrap it up and have a drink, maybe.
Yes, have a drink before it closes. Yeah, and meet together tomorrow at 2, because it's here at 2 tomorrow, you know, and also live on Facebook, obviously. But yeah, what do you think? You are a star. And people quite look at it on Facebook live. Yeah, we have feedbacks.
Charming.
Charming. But also from abroad, Ute had a friend who told me, "Oh, I saw you from, I don't know which town in Germany."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh my God, good that I didn't know before. Now you know before." Sorry.
Wow.
Because then it was a bit stressing for her.
No,
You're used.
No, but I cannot imagine anyway what that means.
Me neither. I know it, and so we can. Yeah. Thank you very much for having shown up tonight in this very nice place, very welcoming place, Manassia Hub, and really the pleasure we are waiting for the pleasure to talk with you tomorrow again and more.
Okay, cool. Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
Say, spread the word. That's how you say that.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.